Hello, everyone. Today is November 18th, 2022. I'm here today with Rodrigo Pereira. Rodrigo is a small business owner. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Rodrigo.
Thank you, Karush. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to our conversation.
Yes, I look forward to it too. So, we met Rodrigo last week.
It was
Well, not.
nice. Yeah, we met in Chile.
So, we just got kicked off, but wow. Okay, let's try and start that again.
Let's start again. No worries.
So, you're a small business owner, and we were saying we met in Chile last week,
Exactly.
and you're a citizen of Brazil.
Yes,
It was very good to meet you in a foreign country for both of us.
that's true, brother. It was very, very nice to meet you and the other guys and to participate of the whole thing.
Yes, it was a whole week of just partying and fun and getting to know, you know,
Exactly.
everything. I remember the night we met was actually Brazil's election.
That's true. That's the second round, actually.
There's two rounds.
Yes, that's true. Two rounds. Two rounds. The first one, on the first round, uh, there were about six. Uh, how can you call in English the people who are
Candidates.
candidates exactly? And the two who were the most voted passed to the second round. And this year, the the candidates were Jair Bolsonaro, which was the current president of Brazil.
Incumbent.
Yes, and he was against Lula, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who was former president as well, and for a lot of people, he was the best president Brazil ever had, and it was a very, very close dispute. Like the outcome result was like 50 and something percent for one and 49 and something percent for the other. So yeah, Brazil is very divided right now for this outcome of the elections. And sorry, you can go ahead.
What you said for a lot of people, Lula was the best president they ever had.
Yes, yes.
What is the reason?
The reason is because in a very poor country as Brazil, Lula, through social politics, managed to get a lot of people out of misery. Before of Lula, we had no uh, political social politics as we start to have on his government. Uh, we are a very new democracy. We in Brazil. Our last and our current constitution was made in back in 1988. So before that, since 1964, we were under a military government, and the data that we had of that moment is not very clear. Of course, the military didn't release very much for the public. It's something that we say in Brazil is that if you If you do not hear about it, it never happened. That's what the military used to do. They hide the things that used to happen, the bad things that used to happen during the military period. So nowadays, a lot of people which doesn't extend the history of their own country used to say that never happened because they don't have the data, you know. So we have a very divided country right now, just as I think happened to you guys in US 2 years ago when Trump lost the election. And now we got a lot of protesting in Brazil. People try to barricade the roads, and yeah, it's an issue. It's a very concern for the Democrats in Brazil right now.
Okay. And one thing we want to say before we continue is that you are a normal citizen of Brazil. You're not. What would you like to say?
I just like to say that I'm not a big company management. I'm a small business owner here in Brazil. Uh, Even though I live in a better condition than the vast majority of people of Brazil, of citizens of Brazil, I try to understand their situations. I try to study their situations. I try to read a lot about what's happened in Brazil. And the point of view that I will be talking about here is the point of view of someone who doesn't live the things that we are going to talking about, but I'm trying to understand the situation, you know. So what you will be here today, it's the word of a person who has privileges in Brazilian society, you know. Even though I'm not rich, I'm not a millionaire, but I have some privilege that I think 99% of the Brazilian doesn't have, you know. And that's a sad thing. That's a very sad thing to say, you know. It will be much better if I could go out home and don't see the misery I used to see in the streets every day. People starving, people asking for food, for a change at the traffic lights. And anywhere you go, any time of the day, you see a lot of misery in Brazil. You see, and for someone who has a little bit of conscience, it's a very sad thing to live and to see. And yeah, that's the point of view that you and your audience will be seeing today as we talk.
Okay. It's very difficult to live, in your country and then see people, your neighbors, living such terrible, really difficult lives.
Exactly.
You said a statistic, 70% of Brazilians. Could you say it again?
Yeah, more than 70% of the Brazilians live with a budget lower than $1,000 a month.
That's huge, 70%.
Exactly. And only 1% of the Brazilian lives with a budget above $3,000 a month. Only 1% of the Brazilian. And in this 1%, we can include the millionaires, the billionaires. So the vast majority of Brazilian people is poor. Is poor if we see under our, even our, how do you say in English, the pattern, the
Class hierarchy.
yeah, the statement, you know, the even under our own, I'm sorry, I forgot the word in English, but
You can say it in Portuguese.
padrões,
Patrões.
our, for even our, for our padrões, for let me, can you give me a minute to research the word in English?
Yes.
Just a minute.
And while you're searching, just to say, speaking with people from the anywhere in the world, it's much easier now because of online translators.
Sorry, brother.
Oh, I was just telling our audience that speaking with people from around the world, the online translators make it much easier.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, it's globalization. We have no turning back from that.
No turning back.
We talked about that last week in person.
Yes.
And I think we're going to speak a little bit more about that today.
Yes.
But no, the research I did come out like pattern, but not pattern. It's statements, it's standards, like standards.
Okay.
Even for our standards here in Brazil, people doesn't live a good life. People are living. I mean, for my standard, which it's lower, of course, than USA people standards, here in Brazil. So even for my standard, people here is not having and never had a good life, a good way of life, And that's sad. That's just sad to realize, to understand, because there are some people that they choose not to look at that. They choose to fool themselves, not to realize that their neighbors are in necessity. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So when you develop some kind of conscious, when you try to understand the reality of your own country, you start to see these kind of things. But a lot of people choose not to look at it. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah. That's.
You said that Brazil is very divided. What are some things? What are some topics they're divided on?
As I said before, the majority of the people doesn't study their own history, and they didn't know what happened in the past for real. So a part of the population is asked to the return of the military management, the military government, and but they don't really understand what that means. They think that with the military, they would be free, more free. They think that the military are how can I say? The military is a part of the population, and they are a class that's not corrupt, that cannot be reached by corruption, which is not true. Of course, it's not true. And they expect for a savior, for one guy comes and change everything. While I think that would be a work of the population together. I think the change should not come from above. It should come from the basis of the pyramid, the social pyramid. But to do that, we had to have better education. I think the education is the way out. But the thing is, the politics doesn't want to give good education for the population. Because once you have a quality education for the population will start to think by themselves. They would start to free their minds, and they would start to vote differently. When you don't think by yourself, when you don't think out of the box, you become an easy prey to the powerful people who runs the country, to sell you any idea that they want you to believe in. And even though this kind of idea is not good for yourself. And that's what I think. I mean, I'm not the owner of the truth. I might be wrong. I'm not trying to sell my ideas to anyone. But from my point of view, that's what's happening in Brazil right now. You know, people who are poor, people who live under the the line of poverty, defending some ideas, some liberal ideas of economics that, of course, is not good for themselves. You know, is meritocracy a word in English?
Yes.
Yes. This is the concept that is been selling to Brazilian people a lot these days. Meritocracy. Meritocracy is a good concept when people have the same opportunities. When you have the same opportunities, of course, everyone is going to do your thing. I agree with that. I'm okay with that. Of course, I'm a capitalist myself. I'm not socialist, you know. But I think that people who had not had the opportunity to have good education, good nutrition, they need to be assisted. It's just the fair thing to do. You cannot have people who doesn't have this kind of opportunity competing in a fair way with people who has the opportunity to speak in English, to study in a good school, to graduate, you know, to have contact with other cultures. I mean, it's not just fair. And you find yourself here in Brazil, see people who are poor defending this kind of things. I don't know why, but this is the kind of thing that you are hearing a lot from the what they call here independent media, which are, for me, is not really journalism. These kind of people they have their own their
Agenda.
agenda, exactly, and we don't know who are behind this agenda. You know, I mean, we can imagine, of course, who has a little bit of intelligence can think that can see, can understand that there are powerful people behind of it. And of course, it's all about the money. It's all about the money. When someone is losing, there is someone else winning. You see, that's what I think of the general situation in Brazil right now.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
That's a huge number, 70%. And, like you said, they don't have the opportunities. And to say meritocracy for someone who was born maybe without a home to someone who was in the 1%, their family makes over 3,000 a month budget. That's not a real, there's no, even if this person at the bottom does, much less than the person at the top, that person at the top's merit is going to be higher.
that's true.
So, like you said, that was a very good point you made, is that I hadn't thought about it like that, you can't, a meritocracy works when everyone's on the same
Level.
standard. Yes. And you also brought up how, there's a certain amount of people that have these opportunities to get a good education, learn English. And, going back to that number, 70%, I think one of the greatest things in the last 20 years has been China taking a lot of their population from poor to middle class. It's not about, a few select people becoming extremely rich. It's about a large portion of their population going from poor to
middle class.
Exactly.
That's what happened in Brazil with Lula. But Lula got out the government in 2010.
Wow.
So it's been 12 years. And in these 12 years, the world economics changed a lot because Lula how can I say, they took advantage of the price of the commodities by that time that were very high. China were growing in a like 5% a year or something like that, and China was buying a lot from Brazil. So Brazil managed to get rich to a certain point, and Lula, with this kind of money, they put on the social project that we were talking about. That's how Lula managed to take a lot of people out of poverty and to make them middle class. But now the movement is the opposite. People are going back again to the middle class, from the middle class to poverty. That's what happened in Brazil right now. But people who are voting now, the young people who are voting now, doesn't even remember the time of the Lula government. They are being raised under this speech of meritocracy. And I don't know if I mean I don't know if it's a good thing, because I think, how can I say? Yeah, I think that they are just they doesn't know their places in society. You know, they are sometimes against the raise of taxes, but they don't pay taxes. The rich people pay more taxes. So they are, see, the speech who are selling to them and then repeat a lot without thinking is this speech of meritocracy that we were talking about now, which is wrong. I think so.
Meritocracy. It goes, people may think it's also capitalism, but what do you think meritocracy and capitalism, how are they different or how are they similar?
I think capitalism is the only way, only the only economic way we can live in our society in these days. I defend capitalism, but I wish that the big capitalists would be a little bit more conscious, because I think when more people get to have a higher income, a higher budget, they can buy more. They can buy more. So when the base of the pyramid can buy more, all the pyramid grows together. When you cut taxes to the top of the pyramid, of course, you raise the profits, but you don't develop more
Commerce.
exactly demand. You don't develop demand. When you put money on the hands of the base of the pyramid, the social pyramid, you develop demand of the products. When you have demand, the industry needs to
Raise supply.
to have more people working. So you have lowest taxes of unemployment, and it's bad for the whole chain. It's my point of view, you see. So why can we not have a capitalism like this, you see, where everybody can participate of the chain of consumption, of the chain of consumism. How do you say to consume things?
Consumerism.
Consumerism. You see, that's my point of view about capitalism, and it's not a thing that you need to a part of meritocracy, because if you have a capitalism, more conscious capitalism, a capitalism which insert people in this chain of production and consumism.
Yes.
You could really have a kind of meritocracy that will be more fair to everybody.
Yes.
That's what I think. But again, I'm not a politician. I'm not a professional of economics. that's just I'm just an ordinary guy who I trying to understand this whole madness that's going around the world right now. You see, and I'm look forward to to see other interviews with ordinary guys as myself and understand their points of views as well. You know, I'm not trying to sell these ideas to anybody. I think it's important for us to make it clear here. I'm just trying to explain my point of view of Brazilian
Yes.
society inside this world we live right now.
Yes. And it's important, you know, um, you want to see your country do well, and you want to
Of
see
course,
your people do well.
of course.
So it's very interesting. You say there are a lot of young voters right now, and they believe in meritocracy.
That's true. That's true. Even though the vast majority of them are running without that kind of opportunity that we talking about before. You see, and
And are they? How is their edu? How is the? I'm guessing the education isn't very good.
no, in Brazil we have a public system of education, but it's not very good. It's not very good. Uh, the majority of the teachers who lives on a minimal wage, minimal budget, which is 1,200 reais. When you divide by five and a half, it will be like $200 a month.
Okay. And that's the conversion from Rise to USD.
Exactly. Reais to USD is $1 is 5.5 reais,
Okay.
giving or take. And so the teachers are not very how can you say
Motivated.
exactly in Brazil. So good people who should be teaching are trying to have other kind of jobs, employment, and it is reflecting in our Brazilian education. You see, everybody who has a little bit more money in Brazil put their kids in private schools in Brazil. So, and as we spoke before, there's not the will of the politicians to change it. Because when you have a good education, the children starts to think from themselves, start to think out the box, start to have ideas of changing, of getting better, and you can understand that that's not the goal of the majority of the politicians in Brazil. They want to keep things as they are, so people will keep voting for them. You see, that's the I think that's the thing about Brazil. Of course, we have good people here. We have good politicians here as well. But it's a it's not that easy to sell this kind of ideas to so they can make new laws and make structural changes in the education, and yeah, that's why I think that the young people buys a lot this kind of speech, meritocracy speech, because they do not really understand what has been told to them. That's the
Yes.
thing. And special, and above all, they don't see the other side. They don't see the how can you say, the other thing,
Other point of view.
the other point of view. They don't, they think that's the only way to, you see. And as we and as we spoke before in Chile, when we were together, there are some people who managed to get out of poverty and get well in their lives, but that's the exception. That's not the general
Rule.
rule or statement, and we cannot take the general statement by its exceptions.
Yes.
You see?
It's yes. Continue.
No, I was about to say that the way is education, but not only education. Because in
Yes.
Brazil, when you are starving, when you have nothing to eat along the day, your brains are not be nourished. You have to have nutrients in your brain so you can learn that thing that you've been taught into. So before we start a big change in education, big program in education, we have to start to take the kids out of misery. And it takes too long, my friend. It takes too long. It's not overnight that it happened. It's not even in 4 years, which is the time of a mandate in Brazil. It takes a generation to happen.
Yes.
A generation time to happen. So it's not, I think, me or you is gonna be seen. You see, maybe our kids will be seeing this kind of change, hopefully, but it's not a very quick thing to happen. And it's another why the politicians doesn't invest on that, because the politicians in Brazil used to invest in something that gives them the return, the quicker return, the quick outcome, so they can get some more voting out of that. They were like, look what I've done. Look what I made. Vote for me again so I can keep doing this. It's not happening with education, you see.
Yes.
And yeah, that's an awful thing.
Yes. It is an awful thing. And you bring up a good point. Politicians and politics, the way it's set up is to really incentivize them to go for short wins
Exactly.
that they can it's just good for them, and there's some proof at the end, and that'll happen within 4 years. And so especially the year of the election, a lot of things
Exactly.
start happening.
Exactly.
And it's it doesn't help the long run.
Exactly.
And it's very difficult. Like you said, it takes a generation. Change happens very slowly. And
Exactly.
but also something you brought up is education is a big deal. I think we live in democracies, and there's freedom. We have the freedom to vote, but what's the point of the vote if you don't know what's going on? It's actually maybe better to give up your vote in that case if there's no education.
Exactly. I mean, in Brazil, we are obligated to vote. It's not like in USA that you choose to vote. So if we were more educated, I think that we can change this way of voting. You see, people vote here. People are uneducated and obligated to vote. Do you see how this is a formula to the old politicians
Yes.
keep on power? Because people doesn't are giving a shit about
Yes.
about who is there, who is not there. People wants to have their life better. A lot of fake news going around Brazil. A lot of fake news masquerading the 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 real thing in Brazil. So you can imagine the formula when you put together uneducated population, fake news, and politicians who think about themselves before think about the population. So it's a formula, already made formula to keep things as they are. You understand?
Yes.
Even our constitution, our new constitution after the military government in 1988 was made to keep things as they are. I think I say that because the politicians that were already elected in the military government were the politicians who wrote the text of the new constitution. We do not elect a new party to write the constitution and then get back to their jobs.
Just that's huge. That's a big difference from the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution was written by the revolutionaries,
Exactly.
not by England.
Exactly. And it's I mean, we have like 300 and something articles in our constitution. So it's a very tight constitution. We cannot, a very descriptive constitution. So at the same time that this constitution give us a lot of rights, they make much more difficult to have structural changes in society, because they describe word by word how things should be done. Our constitution describes that we should fight poverty, we should fight inequality, but the thing is, they don't put a period of time for that to happen, and they don't preview any kind of sanctions for the governors that doesn't pursue this kind of goals, you know. So these kind of articles become empty. They are on the constitution. They are writing down on the constitution, but our government doesn't pursue it. You see, so it's just something that we have to, but it's inoculate. It's not a, you see, it doesn't have a,
So we're speaking about the Constitution. It has over 300 points, and it's very, but it's not, it's, you know, it's got certain things, but when it actually goes out and it's not held to accountable.
yeah. I mean, our constitution text is very detailed. It gives us a lot of rights, but it makes difficult to have major changes as well, because it's all already descripted. So when you try to make a social change, a structural change, you have to follow the constitutional, and sometimes the constitutional text reveals some ways to do some things, as as to fight against poverty, to fight against inequality, but it doesn't reveal any kind of sanction if the government doesn't follow it. So at the same time, that's very detailed. It lacks some things that make very difficult to have to actually do the structural change that the country needs. You know, I think this, and the fact that it was made by the politics that were already there in power back on 1988, that are the two main points that I think that the constitution in Brazil fails to get the population lives better, you know.
Yes. And very specific. So Brazil is a big country.
Yes.
And what state do you live in?
I live in Bahia, a state called Bahia.
Bahia.
Yeah, which is in the northeast of Brazil.
And how does that constitution affect the state of Bahia? And maybe what is the relationship between the federal and state governments in Brazil?
Actually, we have a lot of differences among our states, very cultural differences, and which sometimes make the living together very hard, actually. But I think the federalism helps our country. It's not in Brazil, but as it happens in USA, to be strong in its currency and in its defense against foreign threats. So that's the two main points that I would use to defend this kind of government, this kind of way of ruling. that we have in Brazil. But we have many difference between the states, cultural difference. Uh, the south in the south where the south states in Brazil receive a lot of European immigrants. As for example, in Bahia, we had a lot of African immigrants here. So you can imagine the difference of the cultures. For example, here in my city, we are the blackest city in Brazil.
Wow.
80% of the population in Salvador is of black people.
Wow.
Which are descendants from the slaves who have been brought from Portugal to work in Brazil. So we have this awful heritage of the slavery, especially in the northeast of the country. And but the constitution itself the the idealism of the constitution was to rip out this difference between the descendants of the slavers and the descendants of the German people who came here. Under the constitution, we all have the same rights, but that's not what you see in real life. You know, in real life, the majority of the poor people in Brazil is black people. So that's why nowadays they are trying to have this kind of politics of compensation, you know, like trying to make a little less hard to 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 the black people and the poor people live, because we understand that we have this kind of death, this social death that came along with our story of slavery work and all of this, you know.
Yes. And that story is very similar to the USA story.
Mm-hmm.
And, my parents immigrated from Iran to the
All right.
United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a second generation immigrant.
All
But
right.
in 2020, the BLM, Black Lives Matter riots in
Mm-hmm.
America, it became obvious that Black people have a very different relationship, have a very different, just the way they're viewed by everyone,
Mm-hmm.
the way that, just their relationship with the country and with other people within the country is unique. And there's, like you said, there's a lot of debt, a lot of baggage, and it's not black and white.
No, it's not. It's not just black and white. I mean, we are a very mixed people in Brazil. We got a lot of immigrants from everywhere around the world, and throughout our history, we absorb all those cultures in Brazil to make one only culture. We don't we The Brazilian culture, I think, from my point of view, it's a mix of a lot of cultures that we took something from Africa, we took something from Portugal, we took something for other countries and put together and made our own culture, you know. So we cannot say about only white and black people. Of course, we understand that black people were abused, of course. Of course, you cannot hide it. But we have, yeah, of course, we need to solve this kind of problem. We need to start from somewhere. Everybody has problems in Brazil. It's not the black people, but if we need to have something to start from, why not start from this from the black people issues? You know.
Yes. And when I say it's not black and white, I mean that's a saying in America to say it's not simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Mm-hmm.
the like when you see it, you see black people in America, in Brazil, most of them are poor. It's not very simple what the reason is they're there.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
like you said, one thing that you brought back is history.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look, at your own country's history in order to see how you got here.
Exactly. You have to see the past. You have to learn from the mistakes of the past, so you cannot repeat it in the future. See,
Yes.
we have to understand the history of the other countries as well, which give us our identity. You see,
Yes.
and as you said, it's not black and white. It's a very complex thing to
Yes.
do and to understand. And when you pull back those things that we were talking about, the education in Brazil, the lack of education, the poor education in Brazil, you can understand, you can feel how difficult it is for us to make the young people, the youth, to understand where they come from, where we come from, and where we are going in the future. See?
Yes. And it's not a simple problem. Even in the USA, we have some of the best colleges in the world, many of the best colleges in the world, but there's a large portion of our population that has, I mean, a large portion of our
Mm-hmm.
population that has a very poor education. And then you mix that in with the right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
It, you know, we, it has to be at least made, I'm not sure, but people need to value being well educated,
Mm-hmm.
not, just for themselves. And I don't know if people understand that.
Yes. They don't. Yeah. They don't evaluate that a lot. They think that's the common thing to happen. If it happened to them, they think that it would happen to everybody. But that's not true. That's just not true. Uh, we as humankind, we I think that our brains are try to understand the world as the world we are living in. You understand? Like it's easier for me to think that everybody has a life like mine. And it's not just true. You understand? That's what happened when that's what happened when people doesn't get educated enough. Like I mean when they doesn't actually study about the what has happened are in their surroundings, you know.
It's and it we have to do our best to not fall victim to it.
That's true. That's true.
So we've been speaking a lot about, you know, what's the issues with Brazil. What do you think is a path forward? How do you think Brazil can, move forward in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
That's a complicated question because nowadays we depend so much on the other countries as well. We depend so much on China. How? Because China is our main economical partner, and the world is all intersected, that you cannot predict how one country is gonna deal without thinking about the whole world itself. But trying to speak about Brazil itself, I hope Lula can make a good government now again, so we can get back in a good relation with the other countries, because Bolsonaro made us like parias. Is that a word?
Parias?
Parias.
What does that mean?
That means that nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody wants to deal with you. Nobody wants to be partnered to you. That's what in my point of view, Bolsonaro did to Brazil. Very similar what Trump was doing to America. And I hope for the next 4 years, Lula can change this kind of situation, how the world sees Brazil, so we can develop our economics better, our commerce with the other nations. And I think Brazil should be investing in technology more than we are investing in agriculture, because we rely so much on commodities in general, but I see the future better for the countries who invest in technology and not only technology, but in science in general. That's what I would hope. That's what I would like to see Brazil doing in the next 4 or 10 years.
Yes, and to go back to what you said, the trade, I don't know if you heard about the US-China trade war, but
yes,
it's not, that's a very complicated economic question, but it's important, to keep good relations, because to just say we're not going to have any sort of economic relation that's 1 billion partners, 1 billion customers. And for China, that's, 350 million customers in the US that we lose. And some things are cheaper made in the US. A lot of things are cheaper made in China. And granted, people, in the US, there's a big, buy it in the US. And it's very tough, because the US is it's an expensive place. People here get paid well. So there's a commodity. It doesn't take so much effort to create it. And me as an American, I save money by going out and purchasing that. So why wouldn't I want good relations, or cheaper fruit from Brazil, or cheaper anything from Brazil? And it's not good. And I think another thing we can see is looking at actually, the person who's in an actual war, Russia. They no longer have McDonald's in Russia. I think that's a big deal. That's a small thing, but I think what that says is very big, because that's a lot of commerce. That's a lot of money being moved around.
Yeah, it's a statement. I think the economics war is the new kind of warfare. It's the new
Yes.
kind of, because if China and USA got in an actual war, physical war, bye bye to the world. We wouldn't see. So they try to control the small countries through the economics, to trade, and that's why uh, the balances not not always got have how do I say
They're
how
not
do I say
fair.
the yeah.
There's
See,
leverage.
exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I understand of economics, of world economics. And for Brazil, I think nowadays we are having much more uh, pressure from China than the US
In what sense?
in presence of China products in Brazil, and and in a way of selling more to China than to USA. We rely much more on China nowadays than in USA. But I don't know if it's a good thing, because what happens if China breaks breaks? You understand? I think we should not rely on just one country. I think we should uh, we should try to trade with more countries, and Bolsonaro wasn't doing that. That's what I hope that Lula managed to do in the next years. Okay.
Wow.
It's all about relationship, you know. Bolsonaro wasn't an easy person to deal. It's the opposite to Lula. I'm not here uh, speaking about the merit of what Lula did or did not do, what Bolsonaro did or did not do in their personal lives, but I'm trying to understand what they did for our country. You understand? In for the relationship of the country, you know. And I look forward to see what Lula can do, because he already did it before. It was another time, as we spoke before. The world itself was in another period. China was growing like in a rate of 5% a year, which is a lot. And Brazil took advantage of that. I don't know how it's gonna be now, but I I wish that we can do something similar that we've done in the past.
Yes. Relations.
Exactly.
It's the same, very similar with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, you don't even talk about what he did. You don't talk about policy. You don't talk about personal, but you just say, was he, people didn't, he wasn't easy for people to deal with. Many people in the country were very distressed by him and his words and his actions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the relations then, internationally with China, with Europe, very strained. And it just, I believe Jair was the first president to not get reelected.
Exactly. He was the first, the first president. Sorry, the first president in history of Brazil who was not reelected. Even Dilma herself, who did not make a good government, was reelected. But the thing is, they are contesting the result of the election. They did not accept this. The institution are working. They are. I think we're gonna have a, a change, a normal change, but it won't be a calm one. It will be very distressful, but it actually is going to happen, but not in a calm way, in a cool way. It's going to be in a hard way, the change of the government, and it's all Bolsonaro's fault, because of their speech. Everything is about the speech of your ruler. What your ruler says means so much.
Yes.
I mean, we are, as we said before, we are divided. So people used to follow what their leader says in a kind of way. Not everything, of course, but in a kind of way they used to follow the leadership. And Bolsonaro is not being helpful in this way, as he hasn't been helpful in another ways, in another thing in the past.
What other thing?
For example, how to deal with the COVID matter. He was against the vaccines. He told people it was just a little flu. So can you imagine, as we spoke before, an educational public, an undereducated public, hearing this kind of speech? How many people could be saved from death if they doesn't hear what Bolsonaro had to say about this? You see, in this kind of way, I think Bolsonaro could and should have done better. You see,
Yes. Was he vaccinated?
he said he wasn't, but he put this kind of data under secret for 100 years.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
So people is not allowed to know what our president was doing in the backstage.
That's not good.
That's not good. But Lula already told the public that he's gonna reveal that. So we are looking forward the next chapter.
It's good. It should be revealed to the people
Of
who
course,
know it.
man. Of course. I mean, if you are not a public person, if you are not a politician, your privacy and this kind of thing should be respected. But when you put yourself in a position to be the leader of the country, you got to be an example for some things. Some things need to be revealed.
It's the duty of the president.
Exactly. You are not an ordinary person anymore. You are the president of a country.
Yes.
You need to act as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you are not allowed to, even you think about something in some way, you are not allowed to say that as freely as you are as when you were an ordinary person. Bolsonaro seems to me that sometimes he thought that he was at a bar table chatting with his friends, not acting like the president of Brazil, acting like an ordinary folk, which he wasn't.
That what? Wow. That in what ways?
I mean, let me remember. For example, speaking, let's keep on the COVID subject.
Okay.
In one of his lives, which he used to do in YouTube, he fake as a person with a lack of air. He was like doing this, imitating people who are dying from COVID.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, when you are don't wait until you are like to search for a hospital. Go straight to the hospital. He was trying to send the right message, but acting like he was speaking to his friend, to his friends at a bar, you know. Uh, yeah, I don't really remember the specified things. I could research after and show to and send you through through email.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember they used to he used to say and do a lot of. For example, you can research it on Google. You can Google it. Uh, while my state was under flood back in 21, we had a lot of floods in Bahia, and
Okay.
Bolsonaro was jet skiing, having fun in Santa Catarina, which is another state.
Really?
Really. So he was very, very criticized by that. And he was like, I can have my time off too. I'm a person as everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He was not. He was the president. He should be there. He should be here in Bahia, checking out of those people, you know?
It's
Uh,
it's pretty obvious that when we I mean, you can't that, just there's a lot that you give up. There's a lot that you sacrifice. And I think that goes for everybody. If we want to be a member of democracy, we have to sacrifice something. And I think that can be really trying to understand what's going on around. And go.
no, I wanted to say that that's what about our social contract is. I mean, you 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 let go a little bit of your freedom to do anything you want.
Yes.
To other people have their freedom as well. Everybody can give up a little bit of their own freedom, so so the the society can live in a security. When you put yourself to be a president of a country, you give up a lot of things, but nobody is forcing you to do that. You do that because you want to, because you think that you have something to contribute to do better than the other people are done. But Bolsonaro seems that that they think that he thought that people were begging to him to go there and to be present, and he was like a savior. Oh, I'm gonna sacrifice myself here for you. It's not what happened. You see, that's what I want to say.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you're happy, with the going back to Lula. And I mean, even now, Donald Trump lost 2 years ago, but we just had our midterms. And, Donald Trump was like, I'm going to choose you. I'm going to choose you. I forget the word, but he said, choose this guy, choose this guy, choose this guy.
He's appointing people.
No, not appointing. Appointing is when he has the power. He has no power.
All right.
He's telling the voters, he's recommending to the voters, vote this person, vote this person.
He still have an influence.
Yes, he does. But he almost a large portion of the people he said vote for lost just a month ago.
I saw it.
And like you said, his relations with people, they haven't gotten much better. And where other presidents like Barack Obama, there's some things that Barack Obama may have done that maybe I didn't agree with now, maybe then, but you look at the way he acted, the way he spoke, the way he just treated people. I mean, the thing with Donald Trump is that there were some people he blatantly did not respect, and he tweeted about it. I mean, some people forget about his Twitter account, but that was a very crazy thing.
I used to follow him, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, at least we can disagree with our rulers, but they need to be at least Democrats.
Yes.
I mean, nobody's gonna to get it right every time. Everybody's gonna to commit mistakes, to make some mistakes sometimes. But the thing is, how they deal with the public day after day. You see? And just to make it clear, I did not vote for Lula or for Bolsonaro. I voted for Ciro Gomes, which he had like just only 3% of the voting in Brazil.
Round one.
So, see, for me, the best one had no chances to be elected, and it shows how people. It's another thing that shows how people were divided in Brazil, and divided between the bad and the worst. Let's say like this, because Lula has already facing corruption charges. He was at the jail, and nobody was proved. Oh, sorry, nothing was proved. But it's clear that he had some kind of participation on those things. He at least knew about the things and did nothing. That's what I think. But you have to have proof, and we had people, the lawyers, the judges could not prove that he was involved. So he could run again in these elections. But I don't think, and he did some good things, of course, in the past. But I don't think that he is nowadays the best choice for rule the country.
Absolutely. And for me, our 2020 election was a 74-year-old man running against a 78-year-old man.
Yeah.
And the 78-year-old man won.
Yeah, the old school.
Very old school, and it's very obvious that these two that there are many better candidates out there.
Exactly.
And it's like you said, old school people, 3%, many people, it has to be someone that people want to vote for.
No, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things behind it, because fake news is now a tool. It's a tool of empowerment. It's a tool for ruin reputations,
Yes.
and we're still not having the weapons to fight fake news. So I think that explains a lot why those candidates still being the most voted among them all. You see, in Brazil we have the Simone Tabet as well, who had 5% of the voting. She was Ciro Gomes, which was my candidate, is a little bit more leftist. Simone Tabet is a little more rightist. But the thing is, as Lula, they are both Democrats. They are both Democrats with new ideas, with new ways to do things. But yeah, they did not have the chance to fight against the machine that Bolsonaro and Lula has already put together to fight on the elections.
That's similar to, have you heard of Andrew Yang?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't.
He's very similar to them. He has many new ideas. He's left. He's very popular. And also, his number one platform is UBI, Universal Basic Income. And we spoke about this, and you said that Brazil has a sort of program similar to that.
Yes, we do. We do. We have Bolsa Família, which was created at under Lula's government, and then Bolsonaro just changed the name for Auxílio Brasil, but it's the same thing. When you are under a certain line of budget, you are up to be on this kind of programs, But again, it just provides the base to people do not starve. And we know, of course, people need much more than just food. It's
like you said, nutritious too.
Exactly. I mean, it's about let me do the math. It's about $40 a month.
Wow.
Only. Yeah. For these families. When you are a single mom, you receive a little bit more, but in the average, it's like $40 a month. So it's just so people can eat, but people cannot have a good life out of it,
We spoke about education, and you said that you think Brazil should invest in technology. I think investing in science, education, technology education for young people is very important.
Of course, otherwise they will be substituted by machines, and you do what they are gonna do without a proper education, without any skills. All of the industry being automatized. So if we do not invest in education, in science, soon we have a mess of people who knows how to do nothing, undereducated, and and much more, uh, which much more necessity of this kind of programs. You know, it will be, yeah. That's what I think. I think that we need to act now, otherwise it will be too late to reverse the way the machine is going in Brazil.
Okay. Rodrigo, we spoke a lot about Brazil and some of the challenges it faces. What are some beautiful things about Brazil?
Oh man, our people is a very it's a very suffering people, but we are very strong as well. We are very committed to get our lives better. We are blessed because in our country we have no natural disasters, we have no volcanoes, we have no earthquakes, we we have a warm weather all year long in the majority of our territory. So people in Brazil manage to be happy with so few, with so you come here in the streets, even the poorest people you see smile on the faces. They try to make life light, lighter, as using the ways they have, you see. So we are a very blessed country. We just find in our way some difficulties, but I'm very confident that we have everything to become better, to make li- our lives better, and to develop ourselves and as a nation, as a society. I mean, that's the beautiful thing that I see in Brazil: our resilience, our uh, our way to fight all this misery that we have here. Of course, I'm not speaking about the the natural beauties, because we have a lot of natural beauties as well.
Yes.
But the most beautiful thing about Brazil is its people, this mixed people that we are. And I think we are in many ways an example to the world, of resilience, of hard working, of uh, hope, because that's the things that we have to hold on, and to dream about a better country.
Yes. Are there any last words you'd like to tell the audience, Rodrigo, before we cut?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, my friend. It was very nice to talk to you again. I hope we can do it sometime in a certain frequency without the camera on.
Yes.
And and for the audience, I just like to excuse me about my awful uh, accent. I hope I make myself clear in some points, and
I
I
think
hope.
you did great.
Thank you, my friend, and I hope I could manage to have an understanding about our situation in Brazil. Saying again that I'm only an ordinary guy, and those are only my points of view. But I encourage everybody who got interested by our conversation to research a little bit more Brazil, to make their own points of view.
My guest today has been Rodrigo Pereira. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Rodrigo.
Thank you, Karosh.